So I regularly get asked about dog harnesses. There's an awful lot of myth and legend and all that kind of stuff that goes around using harnesses. And one concern people frequently have is, will a harness make a dog pull? So the reason why people think that a harness might make a dog pull is because it's actually very comfortable to wear and it empowers a dog when they are pulling. If you think of a strong man in a strong competition who's trying to pull a truck, he's not trying to pull the truck along by a rope with his hands. He's got a harness which goes all around his shoulders and his chest, and he's pushing against that harness. And the reason he's doing that is because it's the most comfortable way to channel all of his power and pull that truck. It's his best option. He's strongest when he's using his chest and his shoulders. And the same is for dogs. You can buy harnesses that are specially meant for dogs like huskies or cart dogs that are designed to help them pull things along much more comfortably and much easier. So any kind of harness you put on your dog will allow them to use that power better, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will choose to. Especially small dogs don't really like to feel that kind of pressure. So when they start to pull forward, it unbalances them slightly and they're not sure about it. So they will stop trying to pull because actually they would rather walk back a slight bit and not feel that change in pressure and tension around the chest and the shoulders. Bigger dogs are probably more likely to push through that and maybe not worry about that so much. And that might be a concern because actually a bigger dog is going to have even more power anyway. So that, coupled with the use of the harness, means that if they do pull, it makes it much harder for you. The tricky part really is that whenever you're trying to train a dog to stop pulling on their lead, what you try to do is to not let it be advantageous to them. So as soon as they start to pull on the lead, if you let them continue to pull, then they will get to the thing they're trying to get to. They will achieve their goal of maybe getting somewhere faster or getting to the thing they want to sniff or getting to the dog they want to play with. And therefore that just encourages them to keep doing it. So when you're trying to stop a dog from pulling on the lead, what you have to do is stop that working for them. So as soon as you feel that tension, you need to stop moving and wait until the dog has released the tension themselves so they learn how to undo that pressure to make you get moving again. But when you've got a harness on a dog and the power is so strong, sometimes it can take a little bit of effort to get them to stop, and maybe they've gone a few paces, perhaps they've got to where they want to go. So it's less clear to them the moment in which things go wrong and that lead tightens and you stop moving, just because you're just sort of in that flow, and they'll carry you along a little bit before you have the chance to stop. So that can make things a little bit tricky. You might also consider a front clip harness. This type of harness makes it a little bit harder for the dog to pull, but some dogs struggle a bit with the way that the clip comes across their shoulder, and it can make them unstable and walk a little bit strange. So keep an eye out for that if you're considering using a harness with a front clip. Of course, when you use a collar, you have different kinds of risks. So a harness is a really safe option for the dog. There's not very much that can go wrong when you're using a harness. They're not going to strangle themselves or choke themselves like they possibly might do with a regular collar. So when they're pulling very hard, obviously they're putting a lot of pressure onto their neck, and that's not good either. Although, because they're not wearing a harness, they'll be less inclined to want to pull so hard. Your alternative perhaps would be a head halter, which is a kind of harness that goes around their head and fits around their muzzle, and your lead usually clips on either under their chin or right up the back behind their ears. Dogs don't really like to pull on these at all. There's no strength at all associated in their head and those sort of muscles, so it makes it really difficult for them to pull on those leads, but there are risks involved with that. So if you haven't been shown how to use it properly, be careful, that because they can damage their neck if they turn suddenly or if they try to run towards the end of that lead. So if you're going to try something like that, go really slowly, keep the lead short, keep the dog right beside you so they're not running about and they can't jerk themselves on it too much. It can take a little bit of getting used to a head halter because it's not something that the dogs are designed to really to know what to do with. They're not used to wearing things, usually on their face. And I feel like it's a little bit like during COVID when we all had to wear face masks for the first time. We all hated them. We were fiddling with them constantly and, you know, trying to get them off. And for a dog, that's pretty much how they're going to feel when you first put a halter on them. So that may or may not suit you. So when you're deciding which kind of harness you want, it's about balancing out everybody's needs in the equation. What's more important? A harness you can't really go wrong with, but it's much harder for you. When you get to a collar, it's kind of a middle ground, but obviously there's still some risks there. And then the halter requires a lot more skill to use. But the dog is less likely to want to pull on that. And once they got used to it, they'll be much calmer wearing it. Other types of collars, which I definitely do not recommend, would be things like choke collars or pinch collars or prong collars. These types of collars work specifically because when the dog tries to pull against them, they tighten and they cause the dog some pain. So this is not a good way to try and train a dog to walk beside you. It does nothing at all to improve your relationship with that dog. It doesn't make them want to work with you. Any kind of technique that uses pain should definitely not be used. But the question was, will a harness make a dog pull? No, it won't. But if they are pulling, then it will make them much stronger and much more difficult for you to manage and train. So hopefully that's answered the question. And I'll speak to you again soon. Take care for now. Bye bye.